Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Real Clear Politics Takeaway for Tuesday, April 6th. I'm Tom Bevan, co-founder and president of RCP.
And I'm Carl Cannon, Washington Bureau Chief for Real Clear Politics. Morning, Tom.
Carl, it looks like I've outdressed you for once.
Well, yeah, there's no real significance to what I'm wearing, Tom, today, except that I mean to tell you, between 4 o'clock and about 7 o'clock, I've got some meetings with some people. I've got a Zoom call, I think. I've got to talk to a man about a horse. I'll just be out of pocket.
You will be unreachable at an undisclosed location.
Correct.
All right, fair enough. Carl, let's stay on the subject of baseball because it looks like the MLB is going to move the All Star Game to Colorado, which folks were quick to point out has less early voting days than Georgia. And other folks pointed out that it's also, a good deal whiter, if that matters. Carl, what do you make of this? And is this a black eye for Major League Baseball or not?
I'm not sure we can even use the phrase black eye anymore, Tom. Things are getting pretty touchy in this country these days. I thought it was what the commissioner of baseball did was ridiculous. I just, you're weighing into a partisan fight. Are they saying they want no Republican fans? Any state they moved it to was going to have problems. I half jokingly said on Friday, well, you can't move it to New York because they have a governor who's, credibly accused of sexual harassment. You couldn't move it to Delaware. There's no major league team there. But if there was, Delaware doesn't have as much early voting as Georgia. I mean, all these states had problems. And what happened is that these executives, I don't know who pressured them within their companies, but Delta Airlines, Coca-Cola, Major League Baseball, they said, well, we can't suppress voting. They sort of used DNC talking points, but they didn't really say any feature of the law that they didn't like, which led to what you're talking about now, because other states, voting has always been determined by the states, and this HR1 and SR1 that's going through Congress now, it's the Congress is trying to take control of it. The Democrats in Congress are. I don't even know that that's constitutional, but states have always had say so in the Constitution for how they run their elections. And if there's some specific thing you didn't like in the Georgia law, you should have said so. And even sports writers who cheered on Major League Baseball, they just characterized it in this broad brush language. There was no one feature of the law that they pointed to. And when they did, they were actually often, like the president, they were features that really even weren't in the law. They had been discussed earlier in the negotiations and they didn't make it into the law. So, yeah, Major League Baseball weighing in like this, where does it end? And who are they to decide what the law ought to be in all these states?
Well, let's see. The NFL has been politicized, no question about that. Obviously, the NBA has been politicized. Now it's baseball. I guess hockey's the only thing that's left, Carl. Even the NCAA, which we were talking about before, has political issues. Is being is fighting battles in states over transgender sports, etc. Although last night, though, Carl, I don't know if you watched the game, but it was these signature events are thankfully, at least the one last night, devoid of politics. It was just straight up basketball. Unfortunately, it wasn't as good of a game as I had hoped, or I think many had hoped, and certainly not anywhere near as good as the Final Four game between Gonzaga and UCLA. But Baylor was clearly the better team last night.
Well, it wasn't a good basketball game, but Baylor's a good team. Gonzaga looked outclassed. Baylor looked like the best team in the country. They look like if they played again tomorrow, the same result. I tip my hat to Baylor. That's some team they have. But what you're talking about, Tom, and what we're talking about now, you and I work for an organization called Real Clear Politics. So this is what we do. But I don't go to baseball games for politics. Sports to me is an outlet where we're supposed to be able to root for our team. You're supposed to be able to sit next to a Democrat or a Republican or an independent in the stands and hug that person when your guy hits a home run. And I can argue this round or square. I've written about, Jackie Robinson and Pee Wee Reese and people in sports, in history who helped bring this country along. And these athletes, they're great athletes. It doesn't mean they shouldn't have a voice in politics. So I get why they want to be involved in the great social issues of the day. But when the suits who run these leagues, cave to one party or another, when they act partisan, that that gets you away from why we like sports in the first place, the purity of it, the joy of it. It's away from our normal lives, and it's supposed to be something that can unify us. Although you can see by the way I'm dressed, I thought maybe I'd boycott Major League Baseball after that lasted about 2 days.
Changed your mind?
Yeah. That lasted till opening day of the Washington Nationals, which is today.
When Howard Schultz sold the Seattle Supersonics out from under the city, I vowed to boycott Starbucks, and that lasted less than a day because I needed my coffee. Another sport, one of my favorite sporting events of all time, and this goes to the point that you were making, Carl, which is the Masters is next. And I love them. I love golf. I love the Masters. It's the greatest golf tournament. But that's an organization and a club that needed change. Didn't have any women, didn't have any minorities. Eventually, was pushed to change and did. And that was a good thing. But, folks are calling now. We have to, boycott the Masters. It's one of the weekends that I love, and I spend a lot of time, much to the detriment of my marriage, I'm sure, watching on Saturdays and Sundays as much of that tournament as I can. I love the tradition. I love the history. I love the sport. And it is, if you are a golf fan, it is the greatest tournament there is.
Well, and, taking the Masters out of Augusta, it'd be like taking the Rose Bowl away from Pasadena. The location is integral to the event.
I might add, as Keith Olbermann suggested, the name of the tournament does not refer to slavery.
Yeah, that was an interesting etymology lesson there. Yeah, he doesn't know what he's talking about.
He's a former Sports Center anchor.
I know.
Who doesn't even know.
He should know that. I think he just got carried away. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt.
No. He does not deserve the benefit of the doubt on that or much else, Carl, in my opinion.
Well,
you can give him the benefit of the doubt.
Well, but here's the thing about it, Tom. We don't want to overlook racism. We don't want to do that. But how far back do you go? People are pretty selective. The Democratic Party in the South was formed, it was a racist party. It resisted, it seceded from the Union. That was the Democrats who did that. They fought for the Confederacy. They enacted Jim Crow. They elected all these governors and segregationists. Should Stacey Abrams quit the Democratic Party and join the Republican Party? It was an abolitionist party. So, how far back do you want to set the clock? People are pretty subjective about that. In terms of the Masters, were they late in integrating? Sure, but they've done it. So at some point, and this goes for politics more than sports, we need to start judging people by what they're doing today, not what they did 50 years ago, and certainly not what their great-grandparents did.
All right, let's leave it there. I'm Tom Bevan, co-founder and president of RealClearPolitics.
I'm Carl Cannon, Washington bureau chief, and this has been the Real Clear Politics Takeaway for April 6th, 2021.